In a distant galaxy far from Earth, a powerful alien race known as the Zalarians watched the blue planet with greedy eyes. The Zalarians were tall, green creatures with large, glowing eyes and sharp claws. They were famous for their advanced technology and ruthless ways. They traveled from planet to planet, capturing weaker species to experiment on and turn into mindless slaves. One day, the Zalarian leader, Commander Zorak, gathered his team of scouts. He stood before them, his eyes glowing with excitement. "Listen closely! We have found a new target, Earth. The humans are weak, especially their children. We will capture them and learn how to control their minds. They will make perfect subjects for our experiments." The scouts nodded, eager to follow their leader's orders. They prepared their spaceship, a sleek craft that could travel faster than light. As they flew through space, they thought about how easy it would be to catch the human children. Back on Earth, in a small town surrounded by forests, a group of kids played in a park. They laughed and ran, enjoying the warm sun and cool breeze. Among them was Mia, a clever 10-year-old with bright eyes and a wild imagination. She loved adventure stories and often dreamed of being a hero. As the children played tag, Mia noticed something strange in the sky. A dark shadow passed over the sun. She looked up, but before she could say anything, a loud roar echoed through the air. The children stopped playing and stared at the sky in fear. Suddenly, a spaceship descended from the clouds, landing with a loud thud in the middle of the park. The kids gasped and backed away. The spaceship's doors opened, and out stepped the Zalarians, their glowing eyes scanning the area. "Quick! Hide!" shouted Mia, but it was too late. The aliens moved fast, capturing the children one by one. They didn't struggle. Fear had frozen them in place. In seconds, the aliens had rounded up all the kids and taken them aboard their ship. Inside the spaceship, the children found themselves in a cold metal room filled with strange lights and sounds. The walls hummed, and the air was filled with a buzzing noise. The kids were terrified, huddled together in a corner. "What do we do now?" whispered Sam, a younger boy with wide eyes. Mia, still thinking of her adventure stories, tried to calm her friends. "We need to find a way to escape. We can't let them take us." Just then, Commander Zorak appeared on a screen in front of them. "Welcome, humans. You are now our guests," he said, his voice deep and echoing. "You will help us learn about your kind. We will make you obedient and then use you as our soldiers." The children stared in shock. They didn't want to be soldiers or experiments. They were just kids full of dreams and laughter. They had to think of a plan. Mia's mind raced. She remembered how the heroes in her stories always found a way to fight back. "We can't let them win," she declared, her voice firm. "If we work together, we can escape." The other kids nodded, their fear turning into determination. They began to brainstorm ideas, whispering in the dark room. "Maybe we can trick them," suggested Leo, the bravest of the group. "If we act like we are scared, they might let their guard down." "Good idea," Mia replied. "And we need to find something to use as a weapon. There must be something here." As they looked around, they spotted a few tools left lying around, a wrench, some wires, and a small metal box. The kids quietly moved to grab the items without the aliens noticing. Suddenly, the ship shook, and alarms began to blare. The Zalarians were busy preparing for their next move, leaving the children an opening. "This is our chance!" Mia shouted, her heart racing. They had to act fast. If they didn't escape soon, they might never see their homes again. Together, they gathered their courage and prepared to fight back against the Zalarians. The adventure was just beginning, and they were determined to show the aliens that human children were not to be messed with. Inside the cold metal room of the alien spaceship, the group of children huddled together, their hearts pounding with fear and excitement. Mia, the clever girl with bright eyes, looked around at her friends. They had gathered tools and made a plan, but now they needed courage. "Okay, everyone, listen up," she said, her voice steady. "We have to stick together if we want to escape." The kids nodded, determined to fight back. They had to find a way out before the Zalarians could use them for their terrible experiments. Mia reminded everyone of their plan. "We'll wait until the guards change shifts. When they open the door, we'll create a distraction. That's our chance." As they waited, the hum of the spaceship filled the air. The children listened for sounds outside their room. They could hear the Zalarians speaking in their strange, harsh language, but they couldn't understand what they were saying. Each sound made them more anxious, but they kept their spirits up. Finally, after what felt like forever, they heard footsteps approaching. The door creaked open, and two Zalarian guards stepped inside, their glowing eyes scanning the room. The children held their breath, ready for action. "Now!" Mia whispered, and the kids sprang into action. Sam threw the wrench he had picked up, hitting one of the guards in the leg. The alien howled in surprise, stumbling backward. The other guard turned, confused, but it was too late. The children rushed forward, grabbing the metal box and using it as a shield. "Run!" yelled Leo, and they bolted toward the open door. The guards shouted, but the children were already racing down the dark hallway of the ship. They zigzagged through the corridors, trying to remember the way they had come in. "Where do we go?" shouted Emily, one of the younger girls, panic rising in her voice. "Follow me!" "I think I remember," Mia replied, her mind racing. They turned a corner and spotted a set of stairs leading up. "There! Up there!" As they climbed the stairs, they could hear the aliens shouting behind them. The guards were regrouping, realizing that their captives had escaped. The children's hearts raced as they pushed forward, desperate to reach freedom. When they reached the top of the stairs, they found themselves in a large control room filled with blinking lights and strange screens. Mia's eyes widened. "This must be where they fly the ship," she exclaimed. "Maybe we can use it to get away," Leo suggested. "But how?" Sam asked, looking around nervously. "We don't know how to fly an alien spaceship." Mia spotted a console with colorful buttons. "Let's just press some buttons and see what happens," she said, her adventurous spirit shining through. With that, they jumped into action, pressing buttons and pulling levers. The lights flickered, and the ship shook. Suddenly, the ship started to lift off the ground. "It's working!" Mia shouted, excitement bubbling in her chest. But just then, the alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed all around them, and the children's hearts sank. "What did we do?" Emily cried. "We need to find the controls to turn off the alarms," Mia replied quickly. They began searching the console, trying to remember anything they had seen in the movies about flying spaceships. "Here! This button!" Leo shouted, pointing to a large red button. Mia pressed it, and to their surprise, the alarms stopped. But instead of calming down, the ship started to speed up. "Uh-oh," Mia said, her eyes wide. "I think we're heading into space." The children held on tightly as the ship soared out of the atmosphere. They could see Earth shrinking below them, and fear gripped their hearts. But Mia took a deep breath, focusing on the controls. "We have to take back control. Let's find a way to stop this." They worked together, each kid contributing ideas. They pressed buttons, pulled levers, and shouted out commands, laughter mingling with their fear. Slowly but surely, they began to gain control of the ship. "We can do this!" Mia shouted, her determination shining through. The ship trembled, but they were not going to give up. The Zalarians would soon realize what was happening, but the children had already come too far to turn back now. Finally, with a final push of buttons and a lot of teamwork, they managed to steady the ship. The panic began to fade, replaced by excitement. They had escaped from the aliens, and now they were flying their own spaceship. The adventure was only beginning, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the spaceship soared through the stars, the group of children felt a mix of excitement and fear. They had escaped the Zalarians, but they still had to figure out how to get back to Earth. Mia stood at the controls, her hands shaking but determined. She looked at her friends who were crowded around her, their faces filled with hope. "Okay, everyone, we need to work together to find our way home," Mia said, her voice steady. "Leo, can you see if there's a map of space on any of these screens?" "Let me check," Leo replied, diving into the controls. He pushed buttons and turned knobs, and soon a bright map of stars appeared on the main screen. "Look, there's Earth," he shouted, pointing at a blue dot on the map. "We just have to follow this route." "Great, but how do we know how to steer this thing?" Emily asked, biting her nails nervously. Mia took a deep breath. "We just need to follow the route and make sure we don't hit anything. I'll do my best to keep us steady." She glanced at the other kids. "Everyone, hold on tight. It might get bumpy." With that, Mia pulled the control stick and the spaceship began to turn. It was a strange feeling, being at the helm of an alien ship, but she focused on the blue dot that represented Earth. The stars whirled outside, and the kids cheered as they saw their home growing closer. However, as they flew, alarms suddenly blared again. Red lights flashed around them, and the ship shook violently. "What's happening?" Sam yelled, his voice rising in panic. "Check the controls!" Mia shouted back, gripping the stick tightly. "Leo, what's wrong?" "I think the Zalarians are tracking us," Leo replied, his fingers racing across the buttons. "They must have realized we escaped!" Just as he said that, a massive Zalarian ship appeared on the screen behind them. It was much larger and more menacing than the kids' small craft. The children's hearts raced as the enemy ship began to close in on them. "We need to lose them," Mia said, her mind racing. "Can we go faster?" "There's a turbo button," Leo exclaimed, pointing to a bright blue button on the control panel. "But it might be risky." "Do it!" Mia ordered. "We have to try." With a quick nod, Leo pressed the turbo button. The ship surged forward, the kids feeling the force push them back in their seats. The stars outside became a blur, and for a moment it felt like they were flying through a tunnel of light. The Zalarian ship followed closely, but the kids' ship was now faster. They could hear the Zalarians' shouts over the ship's intercom, angry and frustrated. The children exchanged glances, their excitement bubbling up as they realized they were getting away. "We're almost there!" Mia shouted, spotting Earth's vibrant blue oceans and green lands approaching. "We just have to keep going!" The Zalarians were not ready to give up. They fired lasers from their ship, and bolts of light shot past the children's ship, narrowly missing them. The kids ducked, their hearts pounding. "Stay low! We have to avoid their shots!" Mia yelled, maneuvering the ship skillfully. "Turn left! No, right!" shouted Emily, pointing at the screens showing the Zalarians' attacks. Mia followed her friend's advice, swerving and dodging as they approached the atmosphere. They could see the clouds swirling below them, and they were almost home. "Just a little further," Mia shouted, gripping the controls with all her strength. The spaceship broke through the clouds, and suddenly, they were flying over their small town. They could see the park where they had been playing just hours ago. Relief flooded their hearts. "Let's land in the park," Leo suggested. "That's where we started. Good idea," Mia said. She began to descend, but the Zalarians were still on their tail. They fired another round of lasers, and the children screamed as the ship shook. "Hold on!" Mia shouted, pulling the controls to land as fast as she could. With a final burst of speed, they landed in the park, skidding to a halt on the grass. The spaceship shook, and the kids tumbled to the floor as the engine sputtered and died. "We made it!" Sam shouted, jumping up. Breathless and amazed, the children scrambled out of the ship, looking around at the familiar sights of their town. They had escaped the Zalarians, and they were home. But as they looked back at the spaceship, they knew their adventure wasn't over yet. They had to warn their parents and figure out how to stop the aliens from coming back. The bond they had formed during their escape was strong, and together they felt ready to face whatever came next. The battle against the Zalarians was just beginning, and they were determined to protect Earth and all its children. As the children stood in the park, staring at the alien spaceship, a mix of excitement and fear filled the air. They had escaped the Zalarians, but they knew they weren't safe yet. Mia gathered her friends in a huddle, her face serious. "We have to come up with a plan. The Zalarians will come after us." Leo looked around, his eyes wide. "But what can we do? They have advanced technology, and we're just kids." Mia thought for a moment. "We might be kids, but we have something they don't. We know our home, and we can use that to our advantage." She glanced around the park, thinking about how they could protect themselves and the town. "Okay, let's split up," Mia suggested. "Sam and Leo go gather supplies from the school. Emily and I will talk to the other kids in the neighborhood. We need everyone to be ready." "Ready for what?" Emily asked, her brow furrowed. "For a fight," Mia replied, her eyes shining with determination. "If the Zalarians come back, we need to show them we're not afraid. We'll set traps and make a plan to defend our town." The group nodded, feeling a surge of courage. They quickly went their separate ways, determined to prepare for the showdown. Mia and Emily rushed through the neighborhood, knocking on doors and gathering other kids. They explained the situation, and soon a small army of children was ready to join them. They shared ideas and strategies, and the excitement grew. "We can use water balloons as weapons," one kid suggested. "And we can set up barriers with old furniture." Meanwhile, Sam and Leo ran to their school. They searched through the science lab and the gym, collecting whatever they could find: sports equipment, science supplies, and anything they thought might be useful. "This will be our secret weapon," Sam said, holding up a roll of duct tape. "We can use it to trap them," As they gathered supplies, the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the town. The children met back at the park, excitement buzzing in the air. Mia stood on a bench, raising her voice. "Okay, everyone, listen up! We have to work together if we want to keep our home safe. The Zalarians won't expect a bunch of kids to fight back." The crowd of children cheered, their spirits high. They began setting up their traps, placing water balloons in strategic locations, and using furniture to create barriers. They worked quickly, knowing time was running out. The plan was coming together, and they were ready for the aliens to return. Suddenly, a loud roar filled the sky. The children looked up to see the Zalarian ship descending, its dark shadow looming over the park. The group of kids fell silent, fear gripping their hearts. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of leadership on her shoulders. "Remember, we've trained for this. Stay calm and stick to the plan." The spaceship landed with a thud, and the Zalarians emerged, their eyes glowing and expressions fierce. "Humans!" one of them shouted in a deep voice. "You will pay for your defiance." But the children stood firm, ready for the confrontation. They had made their preparations, and now it was time to show the Zalarians that they were not to be messed with. "Let's go!" Mia yelled, and the kids launched their water balloons, hitting the aliens with splashes of colorful water. The Zalarians were taken aback, their surprise giving the children a moment of advantage. "Get them!" shouted one of the Zalarians, shaking off the water. The aliens charged forward, but the children had set up their barriers. They quickly moved behind their makeshift shields, using sports equipment as projectiles. Soccer balls flew and basketballs bounced, hitting the aliens and distracting them. Leo grabbed a few soda cans, mixing them with some of the science supplies they had found. "Here goes nothing!" he yelled, launching them at the Zalarians. The cans exploded in a fizzy mess, causing the aliens to slip and stumble. Mia led her friends in a coordinated attack, shouting commands. "Emily, throw the water balloons! Sam, cover our left! Leo, stay close to me!" They moved as a team, working together to fend off the alien invaders. As the battle raged on, the children realized they had the upper hand. The Zalarians were not prepared for the creativity and teamwork of the kids. With each splash of water and each hit from a makeshift weapon, the children grew bolder. But just when it seemed they were winning, one of the Zalarians shouted, "Retreat! We will return!" The aliens began to back away, realizing they were no match for the determined group of children. Mia watched, her heart pounding with victory. "We did it!" she cheered, and the other kids erupted in celebration. They had stood up to the aliens and defended their home. But as they cheered, they knew this battle was just the beginning. The Zalarians would be back, and they needed to be ready. The fight for Earth was far from over, and the kids were determined to protect their world, no matter what it took. The sun rose over the town, casting a warm glow on the park where the children had fought bravely against the Zalarians. They were exhausted but filled with a sense of pride. Mia, Leo, Sam, and Emily gathered at their makeshift headquarters, a cluster of picnic tables covered with water balloons, sports equipment, and the remnants of their battle. "We showed them last night," Leo said, a grin spreading across his face. "But they'll be back, I just know it." Mia nodded, her expression serious. "We need to be ready for anything. They might come back today or tomorrow, and we need a solid plan." "Let's set up a lookout," suggested Sam. "We can use the treehouse as a base. From up there, we can see if the Zalarians come back." The kids quickly agreed, and they rushed to the treehouse. Climbing the ladder, they set up their lookout post with binoculars, a walkie-talkie, and a few snacks for energy. As they settled in, they took turns keeping watch, waiting for any sign of the alien ship. Hours passed, and the excitement of their victory faded into worry. The park was quiet, and the kids began to wonder if the Zalarians would return. Just as they started to lose hope, Leo spotted something in the sky. "Look! Over there!" he shouted, pointing to a dark shape approaching. The other kids rushed to the edge of the treehouse, their hearts racing. The familiar outline of the Zalarian ship loomed closer. "They're back!" Mia exclaimed. "Quick, everyone down to the park!" The kids scrambled down the tree, their minds racing with thoughts of how to protect their home again. They gathered in the park, forming a line in front of their defenses. "We need to stay calm and stick to our plan," Mia said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. As the Zalarians landed, the ground shook beneath them. The alien commander emerged, looking angrier than before. "You think you can defeat us with your childish tricks?" he roared. "This time we will crush you." The children stood firm, ready for another battle. "We're not afraid of you!" Mia shouted back. "We will protect our home! Let the fight begin!" The commander yelled, and the Zalarians charged forward. The children quickly launched their water balloons again, but this time they had a new strategy. They used old nets and ropes to trap the aliens. As the Zalarians ran into their traps, the children cheered, feeling empowered. They worked together, covering each other's backs and shouting encouragement. "Left flank!" Emily called out, pointing as a group of aliens tried to sneak around the side. "Get ready!" With perfect timing, the kids released their nets, ensnaring the Zalarians. The aliens struggled, their shouts filled with surprise and anger. The children used this moment to launch their sports equipment, hitting the Zalarians with a volley of balls. "This is working!" Sam cheered. "Keep it up!" But the Zalarians were clever. They regrouped and began to fight back, using their alien technology to shoot beams of light toward the children. The kids dove for cover, but Mia had a plan. "Everyone, follow me. We need to get to the water fountain." They ran toward the fountain, using it as cover. As they hid behind the cool spray, Mia shouted, "Now! Use the water to our advantage." Leo grabbed the hose from the fountain, quickly twisting it around to create a makeshift water cannon. "This will soak them," he said with a laugh. As the Zalarians approached, the children unleashed the water cannon. The stream of water hit the aliens, knocking them off balance. They slipped and fell, unable to regain their footing. The children cheered, their confidence growing. "Now's our chance! Charge!" Mia yelled, leading the way. The kids surged forward, throwing everything they had at the Zalarians, water balloons, balls, and whatever they could find. The Zalarians were overwhelmed, their advanced technology failing against the determination and creativity of the children. As the battle continued, the alien commander began to realize he had underestimated the humans. "Retreat!" he shouted, but the children were relentless. They chased the Zalarians back toward their ship, throwing water balloons and cheering loudly. With one last push, the kids cornered the aliens at their ship. "You can't take Earth from us," Mia shouted, her voice ringing out with strength. "We'll always fight back!" The Zalarians scrambled into their ship, fear on their faces. The children continued to throw their weapons, and as the alien ship lifted off the ground, the commander looked down at the kids. "You may have won this time, but we will return," he shouted as the ship disappeared into the sky. Breathless and victorious, the children stood in the park, their hearts racing with excitement. They had defended their home against the Zalarians and had proven that they could fight back. The bonds they had formed during this adventure were stronger than ever. As they celebrated their victory, Mia smiled at her friends. "We did it together! We protected our home and we're ready for whatever comes next. Let's keep our guard up and always be prepared." The kids cheered, knowing they had made history. They had shown the aliens that human children were not to be underestimated. Together, they would always be ready to defend their world against any threat. The final victory was theirs, but they also knew that the fight for Earth would continue. And together, they were unstoppable.